and all were amazed. One of the things that have been present to me as we get ready for Christmas is thinking back to my childhood, the amazement that comes with this season of celebration. Been thinking about how this park, the dream, it's almost like a fairy tale that Christmas is coming. And thinking about that as an adult now, I don't quite have that amazement and that fairy tale kind of sense of Christmas. And I keep reflecting, especially during this time, during holidays like this, it's important for those of us perhaps who feel the same way to reflect on perhaps why we may have lost that spark or why it may have reduced. The psalmist says to us, "Lift up your heads and see, your redemption is at hand." Perhaps as we come near the end of the year, we may be going through situations that weigh so much that it feels like our redemption is not at hand. That perhaps situations like what befell the family of John the Baptist, that there is no salvation. I know perhaps especially during holidays, what weighs the most on many people is grief. Many of us grieve through the holidays. Maybe we think about how we celebrate, whether it's Christmas or the New Year's, but now with what feels like an emptiness in our hearts, or maybe literally an empty chair in our house, maybe because of a loss. For many of us through the year, it's the loss of a loved one. For others, maybe the loss of an opportunity, the loss of a dream, the loss of health, the loss of the different things that we lose in our lives. Maybe we grieve family members who are far away from home, or maybe those who are separated from us. Or even more so again, our loved ones who we have the duty to pray that they now celebrate Christmas in heaven. Cycles of emotions accompany grief. But again, the question for us is following the psalmist. Your redemption is at hand. How do we respond to these emotions? Could God be any part of it? One of the images used to describe grief is like a bottle in a ball. And so you can think of your heart as the bottle and the grief as the ball. So naturally, as we know, grief takes as long as it takes. There is no right or wrong way to grieve, as long as we're grieving, right? So grief takes as long as it takes. The same goes with healing. Healing takes as long as it takes. And so again, if you think of your heart as the bottle and the grief as the ball, the sense is that perhaps as you grow in your healing journey, it is not so much that the grief depreciates. It's that your heart grows big enough to accommodate your grief. For many of us who has lost a loved one, perhaps you can think about how 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years even, the grief is still there. But perhaps through time, you don't grieve as much as you did, maybe on the first day with the shock and the confusion and the anxiety and the anger and everything that goes with it. And so as your heart grows with the help of God, you lean on more courage to process grief in a different way, perhaps, than you used to. The word courage literally means strength of heart. That is one of the graces we can pray for during times like this. The seasons when we miss our loved ones the most also invite us to ask, could this season also be an opportunity for growth? For growth in our faith life, for growth in our walk with God, for growth even in our love for our loved ones. If we leave our pain unchecked, if we live out our pain alone, that is where it can harm us. That is where it can harm our faith. That is when it can begin to lead to despair. However, on the contrary, if we allow our pain, if we allow other people into our pain, if we allow even more so God into our pain, that is when we can begin to believe the psalmist, our redemption is near at hand. And so what can we do? What can we do? When all those emotions and feelings and thoughts begin to, what feels like, take over us, it helps to pause and to try to name your feelings. When you name that feeling, again, as we might know, feelings are feelings. They are neither good nor bad. They're just feelings, right? So when we name those feelings, whether it be anger or sadness or frustration or despair, whatever it might be, give it to Jesus. Invite Jesus into that emotion, into that feeling. Even just calling on his name alone is prayer. Just call on Jesus. Give him that emotion. Name those emotions. Give it to him. Jesus is begging to help us. Again, your redemption is near at hand. And if you feel comfortable, share what you are going through with somebody that you trust. As the saying goes, a problem shared is half solved. And we as Christians, we might know that, perhaps when somebody shares with you about their grief or shares with you about their burden, yes, many times we say that we will pray for them, but maybe you can also pray for them in that moment, because God has given us the grace as baptized Christians to pray for our loved ones. Another thing that we can do in this season of what could be for us a season of grief is to give ourselves the chance to remember the joyful and the loving memories that we shared with our loved ones who have died. Those stories are still in their hearts. They carry those stories forever. And we give thanks to God for the opportunity that we have had to share those times with them. Recollecting our cherished moments with our loved ones perhaps can put a smile on our face when all may seem dark. And when times are tough, it's also good to pause and ask, what kind words would they say to me in this moment? What kind words would they say to me in this moment? Perhaps many times for us who feel stuck in our grief, it's important to remember our loved ones do not want us to remain there. Our loved ones actually want us to blossom, to flourish, to continue to live, even if not for us, but even more so for them. So it's good to pause and ask, what kind of words would they say to me right now? And as we know, going to Mass is very fundamental for us because, again, as Catholics, we have the duty, and as Christians, we have the duty to pray for our loved ones who have died. And at every Mass that we go to, we automatically pray for them. You might hear it quite often in the consecration prayer when we lift up our brothers and sisters who have fallen asleep in the sign of faith. Again, how do we grieve? Whether these seasons will be easy or difficult for us, please reach out to somebody, especially somebody you know whose loved one has passed, most especially in recent times, and ask how they're doing. Maybe share with them, I am here for you. Do you want to talk about it? Do you just want my presence? How would you like me to pray with you? You have my heart and my support. And maybe if you are at the store, ask them what could you pick up for them? Because maybe they haven't eaten and they need some food. Perhaps a phone call might help. Again, the reasons we put our grief into activity, not just passivity, is because our redemption is at hand. The scripture tells us to rejoice with those who rejoice and to grieve with those who grieve, to weep with those who weep. We rejoice as a community and we grieve as a community because Jesus is here with us. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Your redemption is at hand.